G'day guys, welcome to today's tutorial. Today we are talking about the Laying Dumbbell Hamstring Curl. Fantastic option for when potentially your only availabilities is a dumbbell or a barbell like we have set up in my shed today. That being said, there is no reason why you can't perform this exercise at the gym where you have large variety of different machines and so on and so forth. The beauty about this exercise is that it forces us to stay really tight and rigid with our form, because if we don't, we're actually going to lose the dumbbell. And what I'm referring to is that we have to be pushing our feet forward in order to control the dumbbell. Now, why do we want to point our toe when we are doing a hamstring curl rather than say being dorsiflexion where our toe is coming all the way up? And the reason being is because the way the hamstring and the calf intersect one another here, you're going to get a great deal more hamstring activation when it comes to having your legs in plantar flexion than potentially you are when it comes to being in dorsiflexion. So plantar flexion is like you're planting your foot on pedal to the metal. Dorsiflexion is where your toes coming all the way up towards your kneecap. Okay, so let's talk about the hamstrings just quickly, so that way then you can understand why it is that we do things on the bench. Our hamstrings go over two different joints. They go over our knee joint and they go over our hip joint and insert up into the lower back, which is, if we have tight hamstrings, is why potentially there's a referral pain into the lower back. Okay, so knowing this, what we need to understand is that muscles that go over two joints, one joint must be fixed and stable in order to get the most amount of out of that contraction. Okay, if one isn't, if we are trying to contract over both joints, we're not going to get a full contraction out of the muscle. And a great example of this is, I'm fortunate enough to be in this position, is our quad. So obviously our quad does the opposite to our hamstring. It'll insert up onto our hip here and go into the front of our kneecap here, or down into the kneecap. So if with muscles that go over two joints, if we are bunched up at the top joint, then the bottom joint can't get a full contraction. So a great example of this is like so. If my knees are all the way up, I can't straighten my leg. All right, doesn't matter how hard I try. But if I lower my leg, okay, and allow this joint a little bit more wiggle room, I can get a full contraction here. So that is what we are going to do, is that we're going to create stability through this top section for our knee flexion to occur and get the most amount of contraction through the hamstring. So create a stable fixed point for which will be our hips, in order for our muscle to draw close towards, right? So think of it this way: the least stable bone will always move to the most stable bone. So if we can create absolute stability through our hips, then our lower leg is going to move quite freely and comfortably toward, well, maybe not comfortably because of the dumbbell, but freely towards our hamstring, and hopefully get full range of motion in that particular exercise. Now, the reason why this is important, because when we do this exercise, we want to be pushing our hips into the bench, and that's how we're going to create stability. Remember our acronym STEP: stability, tension, execution, then performance. Okay, that is our acronym STEP. That is what we must abide by in order to get the most amount out of each and every rep, each and every step, each and every exercise. Right, let's get into position. Now, you can see I've already set up the dumbbell. Obviously, if you can have someone pass this to you in your feet, it'd be fantastic. I don't have that luxury. There's a fair chance majority of you may or may not have that luxury as well. If you do, fantastic. If you don't, what I suggest you do is start the dumbbell upright as it is, like this, and slightly tilted back if possible, because that way then you can slot your feet in and get it. But I'm not going to make this look pretty, so just bear with me here. So we're going to lay down on the bench. Now you can see that I've actually dropped the bench down, so it's in a decline position. The reason I have done that is purely because the way your knees sit, it's just a bit more of a comfort factor. Also, because I don't have anyone handing me the dumbbell, I can slot my feet in quite easily, and also I can bail out quite easily. If I was upright, say all the way up here, there's fat chance me actually being able to pick that dumbbell up with my feet. So hence the negative is a good little trick in order to get yourself into position. Right, now what we are going to do is we're just going to grab a hold of the dumbbell first, and then we'll shore up our hips. So with the dumbbell, I'm looking to touch my two toes together. I'm making this look a lot harder than it has to be. Okay, so we'll just settle that up here. Right, so with this, where I'm looking for this dumbbell to be placed between my feet is obviously in the middle, and having my big toes touch. If my heels don't touch, it's not the worst, or not the end of the world, but ideally if we could have the heels touch as well, that'd be great. But we want these big toe, and the reason being is because you don't want the dumbbell sliding out. Okay, right, so you can see at the top I'm in dorsiflexion, which means my foot is flat, but obviously as I go out, I'm going to be going into a plantar flexion position where my feet is still with the base of my foot pointing towards the roof, and that way then obviously so we can hold on to the dumbbell. Right, from this position, what I am trying to do is I'm going to be getting up onto my elbows and driving my hips into the ground. This will create a nice straight back, and already my hamstrings are starting to cramp, so that's going to be fantastic. Okay, in this position here, we are nice and straight, and we're creating stability through my hips. The way I'm doing that is I'm driving my hips into the bench, and now I'm nice and straight. From here, I'm going to lower down, point my toes, get down as low as I can, open up, squeeze. Keep those hips on, squeezing my backside into the bench. All right, that's pretty much all I'm thinking about, is my hips going into the bench, and then you'll feel your hamstrings come absolutely alive like mine are right now. Oh my God, oh my God. Okay, doesn't help I trained legs yesterday at all. That's his excuse. Just can't lift the weight. So I am looking to drive my hips into the bench, create that stability, plantar flex on the way out, so that my feet are nice and flat and looking to the sky. That way then I have control over the dumbbell. Move the dumbbell as you would control your eccentric portions, pop up nice and fast on the way up. That will also give you better control over the dumbbell, because what you're going to find is that the dumbbell will start to slide and move around. So don't be afraid to come up, readjust, make sure your feet are nice and tight, control your way down, pop back up. And then, so the slight elbows under is to run with the gradient of the bench. I probably wouldn't suggest doing that if you're laying flat, just because what we are trying to do is we want to keep these hips driving in, but we don't want to end up hyperextending our lower back and loading that up. Okay, we still want to make sure that everything is nice and straight lined, and we're happy, and not overloading that lower back too much. So I probably wouldn't suggest going up into the elbows. Although that being said, at the gym, if you have a laying hamstring curl and you get up onto those elbows, and because of the gradient, most of them are actually on a nice little 45, it can line you up a little better. So potentially that could be a transferable factor over to a normal traditional hamstring curl. But yes, team, that there is how you want to go about doing your dumbbell laying hamstring curl. Fantastic exercise. Just remember, drive those hips into the bench, create that stability, so tension through your bum, squeeze your bum cheeks, let your legs do the work. You'll feel your hamstrings blow right up like mine did just before, and this will give you some really, really good hamstring development. Oh yeah, that's right, development. And yeah, so yeah, guys, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.